So I was on TikTok and I came across you guys' page. And so then I just sent Mike a message and said, hey, let's get Tony and Kris on because it'd be fun to come and talk to them about the similar things that we do. This is Eddie, by the way.
Hey, guys.
Eddie's my best friend.
How's it going?
Eddie's on the morning show.
Awesome.
And so I was just watching a lot of the stories that you guys were telling, and I was super entertained by it. But I was like, man, I would like to ask them questions about their experiences with some of the same people because, everybody's got a story. And I could tell you there have been people and artists that I really didn't like, and then I spent more time with them, or they matured, and then I liked, and they probably could say the same about me.
100%.
So
we had experiences where we would meet an artist, and we were like, God, that guy was a total jackass. And then people would tell us, that's impossible. There's no way he was that way. And we're like, it was. And then after some time, you're like, oh, he just had a bad day. He's a human being.
That's the thing I don't think most people understand is everybody has bad days.
Yeah. And I didn't either, if I'm being honest. Like, I would just think, well, what a douche.
Yeah.
But I also was very immature. But then I would have somebody, like, see me at a restaurant and not say hi and then post something like, man, he was a real dick. And I was like, nobody said hi to me, and I'm very quiet and that's not fair. And I think having that done to me, and that's how I had to learn, was me going, I shouldn't do that to folks. I should really at least give them a pass or two because I get sick sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm no ball of glory when I'm sick. I'm tired sometimes. So, and I think one of them for me was Carrie, and that she's so shy, Carrie Underwood, when she's not on, meaning not talking into a microphone,
right.
I thought she hated me. The first 2 or 3
That's
times
the
I met
rumor
Carrie
we've been
Underwood.
spread
Yes, good. Thank you.
We're doing our part.
Worked.
I don't know what else to-
It worked. I thought Carrie hated my guts because she was just quiet. And I was like, man, but then 4th or 5th time, 6th, when we lived pretty close to each other too at the time, I love Carrie now, but it took me a few times to go, oh, some people are just really great on camera and on microphone and in person, but unfairly, I'm the same-ish way.
Well,
you got to remember 2 things, too, and this is a knock on our industry. There's a lot of radio douchebags out there, and a lot of times when an artist knows they're going to be around radio, they're like, I'm going to have to deal with that used car salesman. Like, hey, yeah, what you doing?
It's a very cliche. You're right. It's
so
very
once they learn that,
yeah.
hey, you're normal, you're cool, then they can kind of loosen up a little bit.
There's a surprising number, and I've become one of these. I didn't used to be this way, but there's a surprising number of introverted people who have a very social job, artists included. When they're not on, they love it. It's their.
You're one of those.
That's what I'm saying. I'm the same way. If I'm not on camera or I'm not doing what we're doing, I'm quiet. I don't necessarily love to be in a group of people. Now, that didn't used to be the case. I don't know. That's something I've developed as I got older, but I get it. And so I definitely give these guys an opportunity to not prove themselves, but say, well, we'll wait a couple more times before I decide, okay, he's definitely a dick.
I think Kane Brown, and I would say I'm friends with Kane. Like, not just buddies, but friends. Kane was very quiet, very guarded. Kane kind of came out of obscurity, and then it was like, boom, social media, boom. And Kane wasn't demonstrative in his movements. He didn't have a lot to say. But that same exact Kane Brown is exactly the same way now. But now that I know him, he might be one of the top 3 kindest guys as far as if he hears somebody has something going on, like, Kane jumps to help people. Misjudged Kane like crazy. And I can say that now because I've spent enough time with him and I've been able to kind of develop that relationship. Eddie, Kane was tough, right?
Oh, he was, because he's short. All his answers are short.
Well, not his height.
No. His answers are short.
Yeah.
The appearance, too. You see a guy with a bunch of tattoos, a kind of good-looking guy, you automatically think, like, okay, he thinks he's just too cool. But no, we've spent a lot of time with Kane, and he's awesome.
Yeah, and Kane would, show... Like, Amy, my co-host, has a black son, and Kane would, hear his stories and know he didn't have a lot of black friends, Amy's son, but Kane would, show up and, his birthday, give him a PlayStation. Out of nowhere. And that was just, the beginning of what I learned about Kane. But then as I became friends with him, I can push back on him, right? I can, bust his balls, which I would never have done early.
Well, you feel like
you have to be very careful with
Yes.
which artists you do that with.
Yeah.
Because I've got some artists I consider friends, not friendly with,
Yeah.
but friends. But I still am like, depends on his mood today.
That's a great point, too. I would say Jake Owen, who, again, my wife and I are super close to Jake and his fiance. And, Jake's one of our best guests. Pound for pound, I would say best guests, because if he's in a good mood, I can let him have it. But you're right. If he's not in a good space, we got to kind of be careful.
He kind of goes to that older Jake thing. Of
Yeah,
hey.
we got to kind of be careful.
You two butt heads though a lot because
we can.
You guys are so real with each other that they just butt heads.
But that's what you want. I think ultimately everybody wants that. The listener wants to hear some real. You want some real. He just wants an interaction that's not tell me about the new album. So that all works, and I think it's all a win when you have artists like that who are willing to play. We certainly have found it over the years. I mean, the people we've talked to, the ones who will let you play, where at the end of the thing you're going, oh, God, man, we forgot to talk about the album. And they're like, I don't even care. That's what I wanted. I just wanted somebody to be real. You know?
Who would you say pound for pound is, because again, I'm going to put Jake as number one in ours. Like, look, what I say, Garth's awesome, but we only talk to Garth every 4 or 5 or 6 months or whatever. Who's pound for pound you guys think your most consistent interview that you know is going to be awesome?
Well, I mean, in the day, it was Kenny Rogers.
Yeah, Kenny Rogers but
Really?
I'm trying to think current. Oh, there was nobody better.
Only ever had him once, and he was older, so I didn't get to experience that. What was he like?
Oh my God, I still today. It's almost like he was a father.
He was a father
Every
figure
time he would
for
give
sure.
advice and stuff, and we'd be like, and I'm managing an artist now, and all I do is give him like, this is what Kenny Rogers said. This is what Kenny Rogers said.
He was incredible.
And his stories would always be like, we had jingles made for him at our. I told this story a little while ago, but we had jingles made for him that it's the Kenny Rogers Show. And whenever he would show up in San Diego, we'd just turn the show over to him and start telling stories. And he'd be like, well, I was at Quincy Jones' house and Prince shows up, that kind of stuff.
I mean, he was in the early 2000s. He was already telling us some of those behind the scenes of the We Are the World, the Netflix thing
the
that just was on.
documentary, yeah.
He told those stories. He told us the story about, Don Henley and Shiloh, giving them their start and helping the Eagles get their publishing and all these crazy stories. And he was just always on.
But his kindness, where he would go out of his way to tell stuff like, I remember one time I said something and he just goes, Kris, remember, everybody's 3 people: who you think you are, who they think you are, and who you really are. And the closer you make all 3 of those, the better your career in life's going to go. And he goes, I used to wear leather pants and have my shirt unbuttoned down to my belly button. And he goes, that wasn't me. And he goes, I finally one day said, I'm a suit guy. I put on a suit, started being myself, and my career exploded. And I just thought that was great.
Yeah, Kenny was good for us, but he was older.
Well, our last interview with him, it was tough.
Oh, and we almost killed him.
I mean, we almost pull the chair out from underneath the guy.
That's all we need to end our career.
I was like, Kenny, don't wait. I moved that chair. Hang on. Because he was about to sit back down. I said, no.
And the chair had slid out of his way.
Yeah.
What about, because Dolly's always awesome. And I guess I think of Dolly because of Kenny, but also Dolly, I've had a great relationship with Dolly. You guys have experience with Dolly?
Yes.
Have they always been wonderful? Because she's so professional, and I mean that in the best way.
And let me tell you how stupid we are before we even get to that. We've never
This could
been.
take a while.
Well, yeah, okay. We'll just do the top one here. We've never been the guys like we need to get an autograph, we need to get the picture. But we have all the pictures and stuff. The only people we do not have pictures with that we've interviewed are Willie, Dolly, and there was one other one that we were like, we don't want to bug him with a picture.
The Willie thing, he was making us a sandwich on his bus, and I was like, this would be in the days of if those were cell phone days, it'd be like, no, I'm just gonna snap a picture of this real quick because that's just cool. Didn't exist, so that's just a moment that lives in our heart. It's a great memory that we'll have when he's gone.
But Dolly and this is going back to Kenny Rogers. Kenny said Dolly can tell the most off-color jokes and embarrass you. He goes, I only tell off-color jokes if I know everybody in the room. She will blow in and just unload. And she's never done that around us, but she's always, what you see on TV is what you get. Kind of like how we describe Blake Shelton. When everybody says, oh, I love him on The Voice, and we're like, that's Blake.
Yeah.
He's not being anybody else.
And that's accurate. That's very much Blake. What's your guys' story? How'd you meet?
Tinder. No, I'm just.
Sheer luck. We were in a very small town in Alabama, and in college, my first paying radio job was in country, although at the time that was not music that I enjoyed. But I was like, hey, I need beer money, so this is good. Worked there for a few years.
What town was that?
I lived in Gadsden, Alabama. The station was in Anniston, Alabama. At that time, WHMA. 100,000 watts, big station.
Who has the Bama plate on their truck out there? Is that you?
Right here.
He's born and raised over there.
Got it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so anyway, worked there for a while, and then when I had my first kid, really young, unexpectedly, and I say closer to home, it seems like Gadsden and Anniston seemed so far apart back then because it was such a small town. Like, it's 40 minutes. Now, we lived in San Diego. I drove to work an hour every day, one way. But got a job at a rock station. He was like, hey, it's closer to your house. And you just had that baby. It's a little more money. And I said, man, that'd be great. And then they hired Kris. And he and I became friends first, which I think is super important to our story and why we have been able to keep it going for so long without any blow-ups, without any problems. We knew we liked each other going in. And then we got lucky in that we also happened to have great chemistry, on the air. We both had a similar mindset of what we wanted to accomplish, how we wanted to do it, who we wanted to be, and it went from there. We worked together for a very short time before we really got our big break.
And what you just said, Tony, I wanted to ask you about, because I do think, had we not, our story of how we got to San Diego is crazy, but how you surround yourself with good people and make sure everybody's got the same goal, because you know as well as us how hard it is. There's always somebody trying to do their own thing or not following the path. And I think if we had not had John Demick, Mike Shepard, Steve Reynolds, we're Steve Reynolds guys. He's a great consultant. In our life, we'd probably be selling cars in some
I wouldn't be
small
selling
town
anything. I'm a
somewhere.
terrible salesperson. I can't even sell myself. I'm the worst, so I don't know what I'd be doing, but it wouldn't be that.
Very similarly, again, my whole path has been odd, as in nowhere I went did they ever say, we trust and believe in you and here's a bunch of money or any money to hire anybody. So I just hire all my friends because they would work for free or cheap. Mm-hmm. And what was a curse actually turned out to be the best thing for me. Is sure, we all made no money for a long time, but I was able to hire my friends and I trusted them. Not only trusted them to be with me, but they made me feel better, so I was better, right? Like they would put me in a place where I felt comfortable. And if you're comfortable, you perform so much better. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If I'm doing stand-up or if I'm doing, or Eddie and I are doing music or we're doing the radio show, if you just feel better and loose and free, you perform better. So much like what you guys found. But what were you, Tony, what shift were you doing at the rock station?
Middays.
And Chris, what were you doing when you came in?
I was doing swing shift weekends. I started in radio when I was 14 and was at a competing station across town.
So you guys were in the same town, but you came to the same station that he was for like weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And is there like a potluck or something? Because I worked at a very small station and we almost never saw each other unless you were there at the shift when the switch off happened.
I was one of those guys. When I was 14, I decided I was going to get into radio because I listened to Mark and Brian and wanted to be them.
In L.A.?
Yeah.
They were in Birmingham.
They were in Birmingham, and I wanted to be
They
them.
were in Birmingham?
Birmingham, Alabama. That's where, and we worshipped them. We were like, we want to be those guys.
Wow.
And I was at the station, and I would win everything they gave away. And
He was that guy.
They finally just said, will you quit winning everything? I said, give me a tour of the station, and I'll stop. And they gave me a tour, and I said, I'm going to work here. And they said, well, go to college. I said, I'm not going to college. I hate school. And a year later, I was just there all the time. If DJ needed his car washed, I washed his car. I did whatever. And someone didn't show up for a shift one night, and I was like, I can do it. And they were like, really? And that's how I got started. So then when we met, we did much the same thing. We were like, let's just get some chemistry. Whenever one of us have a remote, the other one will come for free, and we'll just do the breaks together, just start talking together.
Oh, you did remote breaks together.
Yeah.
And
just to get a feel for
Yeah,
being
for sure.
on mic together.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as people. If you're good at it, it sounds super easy, but it isn't.
And then the crazy thing is when we got our first morning gig, which Tony tells that story better than me, but talking about kindness, we didn't have an air check, and June Jam was going on in Fort Payne, Alabama, and my old PD called and said, hey, I've got a friend we just hired from our pop station to be on the country station, and he's the PD. He needs to stay somewhere in Fort Payne for this.
Is June Jam a concert?
Oh, yeah,
It was like a
sorry.
festival
Alabama
back in the
used to do
day.
that in Fort Payne.
I mean, it's a good name. I didn't know if it was like a woman that made soup. Like June Jam. You know her. She lives down on 3rd Street.
No,
It's a
June-
concert.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Got
That
it. No.
Alabama did that for years. I think they brought it back just a couple of years ago and been doing it, but it was the thing. And we were like, dude, there's not a hotel room within 100
There's only like
miles
3
of here.
hotels in Fort Payne.
And we
anyway.
were like, but we're renting a place if he wants to sleep on the couch. And so he came and he hung out for 2 or 3 days with us and walked around. And at the end of it had to be divine intervention or something, because he goes, do y'all have a tape of your show? And we said, no.
Did you have a show, though?
Yes, at that time.
So you started doing a show together.
Mm-hmm.
But how did that happen? I know you're doing breaks, but who believed in you? And did you do like weekend
that's
stuff first? Or what happened to even
Anniston.
get on the air together as a formal show?
His hormones really are to thank. It was Saturday, and my old country station was across the street at a pool store doing a remote, and they had a girl out there at the hot tub in a bikini or whatever. Hey, dude, I was getting off. He was getting on. He said, go over there and find out who that is. Get her number for me. I said, first of all, I'm not your pimp, and I'm not going to do this. I'm not going out to get you. I'm not scoring chicks for you. I said, please, man, just okay. So I go over, and in the process of this, which
There was no social media. It was battle conditions.
and let me skip to the end. I never got her number because I got sidetracked. My old boss was there, and I said, "Hey, how you doing? Catching up." He's like, oh, we're looking for a morning show. I said, well, what a coincidence. We're trying to be a morning show. We don't. He said, do you have a tape? I said, we don't have anything. We're brand new, and the tape we made was this fake tape, thinking we were going to be rock guys. So it was a much different kind of tape that we sent out, to everybody, thinking, well, those offers are going to come rolling in now, which
is awful.
It was terrible. So he said, hey, yeah, man, that'd be great. He says, you could come over to the station. You could just make one right in our studio. Great. So it's the day we're supposed to do this, and the weather went crazy. Tornadoes are coming through like nobody's business, but we're not going to miss this opportunity. So we jumped in my little Colt, and off we went, literally drove through a tornado to get to the radio station to make this audition tape. And for whatever reason, he liked it, and he gave us the job. And it was...
I think we agreed to $12,000 a year each.
Well, we made no money. Yeah,
I don't think it was the tape.
We made no money. It was cheap. But it was crazy because he puts us in the room, and he says, all right, you'll be on Monday morning. We have no clock. He gave us no notes. He gave us no information. We had never done a morning show together. So all we knew was, okay, we think we're pretty funny.
Is this something Mark and Brian would have done?
Well, this is a bit Mark and Brian would do. So let's just steal it, and we'll just do that. And we made a name, and we showed up in Birmingham's ratings, and it was crazy. And
Like a little bit, wasn't that a blessing that you didn't know what to do, so you didn't do it like anything? Because I feel like that way about me, because I just kind of raw dogged about 10 years of my career where I knew nothing, didn't know anybody, had nobody I even knew that was in radio.
100%.
But again, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I made my own style of, what was like, wow, look at this new. No, I just didn't know what I was doing, but that allowed me to figure out what I was best at. Like, do you look back at that and go, man, that was really beneficial to us?
Oh, for
100%.
sure. And it's crazy, too, because, you first start out, we'd never done an interview, so the first few interviews are terrible, but that ended up being the best thing we do over time. When people talked about training artists, there was hey, can we bring them in and let you guys do an interview because we think that would be great for them? Yeah, 100%. But the gig was, it was crazy, and then you fast forward a little bit. I think we got that job in maybe October of '91, and in June, when this guy's staying with us, and the tape thing.
Oh yeah, the June Jam, and
She was awesome, by the way. June Jam, really, I loved her. Yeah.
as our friend that we were introduced to had stayed with us all weekend, he just goes, "Do you have a tape of your show?" We were like, "No." And right then, as the words are coming out of his mouth, our PD walks up and goes, "Guys, I made a CMA entry. It's all you guys," and hands us the tape.
So
and
he gave you basically an audition tape that he had
We just handed it
produced.
to the
And
guy.
the guy was
Wow.
Dave Kelly, who ended up working for Big Loud all those years
Yeah.
and everything. And it was just like, wow. And if we had been mean to him or snotty and just said, "Don't know what to tell you, there's no rooms left,"
And what's great is
who knows where we'd be.
this was happening unbeknownst to us. We gave him that tape thinking, okay, great, he'll listen to the tape, and that'll be that. Behind the scenes, we were hoping, our big 5-year plan was to get a job in Birmingham. If we can get to Birmingham, man, that'd be great.
That was Little Rock to me. Yeah, your Birmingham's my Little Rock. Yeah.
So that was our thing. And then we find out that Dave has given that tape to a consultant, Phil Hunt, who was Rusty Walker's partner, legendary consultant back in the day. And he was going to get us a job in Charlotte. And they told us, I think they're going to offer you this job in Charlotte. And we were pissing our pants. We're like, they got a basketball team. That's like a real city, man. It was just crazy. And then Rusty Walker said, no, I think I got a better place for these boys. And we didn't know this was happening. He sent the tape to Mike Shepard in San Diego. He said, I want you to listen to this. And he said, well, they're super green. But he said, there's something there. He said, and there's a chemistry there. There is I don't want to say magic. That feels weird to say about yourself, but there was something there, he thought.
So you moved from where to where?
From Anniston, Alabama to San Diego, California.
That's quite the jump.
That's
It was-
quite
it was the leap of the century in radio and
Yeah,
records.
the media culture shock
Yes.
there that had to have happened.
The last remote we did in Anniston, I had taken a shoelace out of my shoe and tied around the PVC pipe we were using on the mic stand to hold the Marty.
Yeah.
And we're tying it up and like, okay. And
We're serving the pizza.
So our first remote in San Diego, Tony and I start helping break everything down at the end, and everybody's like, whoa, what are you doing? And we're like, well, we're just helping pack stuff up. And they're like, no, you go away.
You don't
We
do that.
This. And we're like, oh, okay.
This is pretty cool. Yeah, it was definitely big.
Did you, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, but even like the guests that would give you the time of day.
Oh,
Yeah. People would. The only thing we had going for us in Alabama is that we became friends with Randy Owen, who's the lead singer of Alabama, and went to his house a lot, knew his family. We were friends, and Randy gave us a little, whatever you want to call
pep
it.
talk?
Well, not even pep talk, but he gave us, I can't think of the word.
Like credibility?
Thank you.
Yeah.
He gave us credibility. He's like, okay, well, he likes these guys for some reason.
He sent a letter without us knowing it to San Diego. We told him, hey, we might end up in San Diego, and he sent a letter to them.
Wow.
that said, these are great guys. You need to sign them.
The opposite. They're terrible. Just so that you'd stay with him.
Yeah, right.
He loved you so
He
much.
just wanted us out of the market.
Do not hire these guys. Yeah,
I want them
your
as far
stuff.
away as possible from my family. Please hire them. It was pretty wild. And so we would get the NASCAR guys. We would get Randy or any friends of Randy. We got to go to the June Jam golf tournament, which is where we first met. That was probably our first time meeting several country stars at once, and it was all pretty wild. But yeah, once you're in San Diego, obviously.
Speaking of Randy, obviously he spent a bunch of his career working close with St. Jude, which I think we all do in this room. But I was listening to you guys tell a story about Chris Cagle. So it's the St. Jude thing. I never knew Chris Cagle. I miss Chris Cagle, but I heard he was kind of a wild guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of.
Chris Cagle couldn't get out of his own way.
So, and that was kind of the story, and I'd let you guys tell it, but he just wouldn't stop talking on stage.
Oh, that was a great story. Yeah, that was fantastic. We were doing a radiothon, and Trace Atkins, you may not know, will speak his mind.
I do, yeah. I do know, yes.
And it was just one of those days that you want to tell this one. Do you remember the story, too, about Cagle, where he's doing the You Know Who I Am? The lady had the seizure?
I barely...
You tell this one, then I'll tell the seizure one.
Okay, so it's very simple. It's a guitar pull, but Chris really wanted to be Garth. And, Garth was a great storyteller, and Garth would talk a lot, and he would hold the room. Chris didn't... he was good. He had charisma, but he wasn't Garth. And he's up there, and he's leading into this song, and it goes on, and finally Trace just leans over and goes, "Hey, man, just shut up and play the damn song." And he immediately does. And then the best part of that story, though, is that later...
in L.A.
It was overheard. He's on the phone with I guess was it...
At the hotel, they were all checking. They all rode one bus down from L.A. and did our show in San Diego.
We timed the golf tournament near the ACMs when it was in Los Angeles. And somebody walked by, and they only heard Chris Cagle's side of the conversation. He said, "Well, yeah," then he yelled at me, told me to play the damn song. And he was quiet. And he said, "'Cause he's 7 feet tall, that's why." It was just, he was whining to somebody, but it was just such a great story. I felt kind of bad for him, but at the same time, Trace was right. Shut up and play the damn song.
Yeah, at the same time, dude, shh.
Well, just talking about getting out of the way, he stayed at our hotel one time we were at here when we'd come out, and he parked his Vet or whatever his car was right in front of the front door and took the keys with him. And the valet and everybody's mad. They're all like, "We can't get in here." So those are the kind of things he did to not get out of his own way.
Yeah.
But the story, and it's been so long, and it's at the Bridge Bar during CRS, so my memory may be foggy. But a lady had a seizure, and everybody was jumped down trying to help her. And Cagle jumps in and is like, out of the way, pulls everybody back, and we're thinking he must know exactly what to do.
Okay, great.
And he grabs her and looks at her as she's kind of coming to and says, "Do you know who I am? I'm Chris Cagle. I sing a song called Beautiful Day." And we're all like,
What
Is this the time to promo? What's he doing?
it was like, nobody knew what to do. We're all like, okay, that's
one way to go.
What's your favorite Garth story?
oh God, man, that guy. When we were going to be jerks to him, that was my favorite. Like, we were like, we're not going to fall for this. It was the Fresh Horses tour. It was his first interview, by the way.
Garth was my first interview. I was still working in Anniston. Yeah.
Really?
Fresh Horses, and that's like fifth album, right?
Yeah, 96. He sold out like 3 or 4 nights at the sports arena. And it was before country was cool, too, because like Michael Bolton was there the next night, and all 3 TV stations are out there with the helicopters. Garth sells out 3 nights, nothing. But we're not going to buy into him working us. And we go to that backstage, and we've got like 8 winners with us, and we're not in the usual place where you do the meet and greets. And we realize we're in his dressing room, and we walk in, and I'm like, "Where's his no guy?" Because everybody's got the no guy to like, let's move things along. And it's just Garth. And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, you bought a hat." And I'm like, "Yeah, got to do it. And I got a book from my neighbor here." And he's, "Oh, okay." And he leans out the door, comes back, hands me my money, and says, "Look, dude, you play my records. I don't need your merch money." And I'm like, "Look at him trying to work us. I'm not falling for this." And then it just got we decide to take over things because it's been 20 minutes. He's calling people on cell phones. He's talking to these, listeners and hanging out with them, just being over the top, getting them drinks. And I'm like, okay, we got to end this. This has been too long.
Even we were feeling uncomfortable. Like, this is too nice.
Yeah, and we're like, "Garth, we're sorry. We're going to move on out now, everybody." And Garth's like, "Sit down. The show ain't going to start without me. Don't worry." And we're like, okay. And then he does. I'll let Tony tell the part that we're 20-something years later, we're still going.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the genius, I think, of him and artists like him. They do something that impacts your life in a way that you tell the story every chance you get. My wife at the time had just had our 3rd child. And so she wanted to come to the show, couldn't come to the show. I mean, baby was brand new. She had just come home. And he was like, oh, man. So he said, can I call her? I said, of course. So he calls my wife. Sorry. And he's on the phone. I have no idea what's going to be said. And he's like, well, hey, I'm sorry you couldn't make it tonight, man. He says, could you, if we set something up for you backstage, if you could maybe get I'm trying to remember if she had just had the baby or she hadn't had the baby.
No, she had the baby.
Okay, she had me. This is terrible memory of my own children. Did she have the kid yet? I don't know.
The same way at the conception. It's real foggy.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so she said, we'll set it up backstage. You can come back and do whatever you need to do if you want to get out of the crowd. And she said yes, of course. He said, great. So he told me, he goes, hey, you guys are going to come to the show tomorrow night. At that moment, his guys say, hey, we got to go. It's time to go.
He started putting his headset on.
Putting his headset on, and he does not speak really to anyone else. We walk with him he said, walk with me to the stage. We walk with him to the stage. He walks up on the stage and starts the show. And I'm like, that's the last I'll ever hear about that. It was a nice gesture, but next day we do the show. At 10:01, my phone rings, and it's the guy. And he said, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Garth. And he said, we were supposed to set this up, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, oh, okay. And we go to the show that night, and somewhere there's a picture of my ex-wife standing. He's holding a towel because he's about to jump in the shower, but he gets a picture with her. And he sends a guy basically into the audience with us. We have really great seats. And he stands back about 3 rows. And if she fidgeted or he popped down, you okay? Is everything all right? You want to go backstage? He was just there as her, her man Friday or whatever. It was crazy. And, it's just one of those above and beyond moments. Again, what artist says, hey, we'll set something up. You can go backstage and hang out if it gets too much to be out in the crowd. It was a great moment. And our plan to not fall victim to his charms
I've told the stories
did not work.
He's the most consistent, extremely gracious and kind major artist that I've ever met when I keep waiting for him not to be.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't seem...
You can't believe it.
You can't. And at this point, I've given up on doubting him, probably the same way you have, because it's been so consistent. And some people will say to me, and it could be Garth or it could be Taylor or whomever, when they have really great people that work around them too, they're like, well, but they hire good people. And my response is, but they have to hire good people to do and represent their sensibilities, right? You shouldn't punish people because they're also hiring great people to make sure that things are followed. And so Garth was so cool. It was the same way. I just kept waiting for him to crack. And now he's just not going to crack.
Yeah. I think what blew me away, going back to him being my first interview, it was my first day. I just got moved to afternoons on this country station. It was a pretty big deal for me because I was still a kid. And PD comes in, hey, there's new guys coming in. He's got a song out. You're going to interview him. And I was like, this is my first shift on afternoons. I'm already nervous. Now I got to interview somebody. I've never even done an interview. Are you, okay. And he gives me the press pack, Garth Brooks, and I read through it. I'm like, okay. He comes in. You wouldn't know the difference. Same guy, same way. He sang the John Deere jingle that he sang back in the day when he was still singing jingles and doing that kind of stuff. He was kind. And then he had that show, there's a place called the Alabama Show Palace. And it was a pretty big place for that small town. It held like 1,000 people. And that night, they thought, this is going to be big. And he's told this story on The Tonight Show and other places. He goes, man, we were so rocking. This is going to be huge, guys. And he said, we ran out on the stage and we opened it up. And there were 7 people in the end. Nobody came because nobody knew who he was. And I was there. I was one of them. And I was always proud to be one of the Anniston 7, which is what he calls us. But then, we interviewed him in San Diego years later after he blew up. And I told him, I said, you were my first interview. And I have to pay you the compliment that you are as kind and generous with your time now when you are a superstar as you were when you were really nobody. You were just starting. I said, it's pretty amazing.
Chris, who was your first interview?
First interview. Wow. I couldn't tell you. I'm trying to think of, it's probably with us. Probably Randy Owen.
Maybe. We hung up on him the first time he called.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know who you lost your virginity to right now. You understand that, right? Like you should know that.
That's dicey with me, too. Just to be completely frank.
Well, he was in elementary school. You can't expect him to remember that far back.
Exactly.
Darius was mine. I was working at a pop station, and I interviewed him with a little handheld. I was nervous as crap. I was 17, 18 years old at Magic Springs. And it's pretty cool because our careers have kind of paralleled each other. And Darius and I are still super cool. But I just remember being so nervous and him being like, hey, I got you, bud. And Hootie was huge at the time. Hootie was massive.
Well, he's another one. He's always just excellent.
Yeah, he's great.
I always said I wanted to be, he's always happy. Like I went through a phase in my life where I just was angry at everybody. And then I decided, like, I'm just going to change that. I want to be, and I would say I want to be more like Darius, because I never see him not smiling except for his mugshot.
That's true.
He wasn't smiling there.
That's the one.
Other than that, he's
And I get
always
that.
smiling, always happy.
Can't blame him for that. That's,
My new favorite Darius story that is between us, is between Darius and I in the same place. I was doing stand-up, and Darius had come to my show in Florida, and I saw him for like 5 seconds before the show because he got there during the opening act, and I was about to go out into the theater, and he's like, "I'm here," and I wasn't surprised he showed up, but I was surprised he showed up.
Yeah.
Because
That's cool.
it's a big deal.
yes, so Darius comes up and I don't know where he is, and about 5 minutes in, I'm into my pretty good material that I know is going to work. And I can hear, ha! Like in the crowd laughing,
laugh.
so where I can identify. And every time I told a joke, I would hear Darius laugh. And there was one point I told a joke and I didn't hear it. And I was like, hey, everybody stop. Darius did not think that joke was funny. His laugh is so loud and cut through that I knew exactly where he was. And I also all night knew what he did not think was funny because he did not laugh at those jokes.
On our show one time, we spliced 60 seconds of him laughing. That's all. And we would have an intro on it, like, take time now to lighten up and just play it.
Yeah.
Because you can't not laugh along with it.
It is
His
infectious.
laugh is infectious.
Eddie, who was the first interview you did?
Probably you. I mean, talk about full circle, probably you.
Yeah, but you
No,
interviewed
I
me
mean-
as a news reporter.
Yeah. So what's funny is the way we met was I worked for the news station in Austin, and he had his radio show, and they had sent me as a photog reporter kind of guy go to some steam clean carpet place or whatever because who was William Hung? William Hung was playing.
Wow.
Solid.
See if you can get an interview with William Hung. So I go with my camera and
That's a quote that's not going to be said anywhere else today, I assure you.
yeah, and so we're waiting for William Hung, and finally somebody comes up and says, William can't do it, but we have the local DJ guy, Bobby Bones, if you want him. I'm like, sure, whatever. I mean, I'm not going to go back to the station without an interview, so
yeah.
I interviewed Bobby. That was how we
Wow.
first met.
Fell in love.
I was going to say, what a great story. though,
Yeah.
to be able to say, like, y'all
At
wouldn't
a
have
William
met
Hung
if William
show.
Hung had shown up and done an interview.
Exactly.
Your
Who
life, your
knows?
career pivots on
was
William Hung.
He was actually kind of tough.
William
Like,
Hung?
Yeah, like he didn't want to talk to anybody.
Maybe because he was embarrassed or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I think he was having his moment where
He was playing the carpet cleaner.
No, I hear you. That
That was his moment. I mean, everybody's moments are different in size.
I logically can see why he shouldn't have felt that way, but I think he was like at the peak of his fame.
Yeah.
And so I think he was like too cool for a minute. I think he was too cool. You guys go to San Diego. How long were you on together in San Diego?
93 to 2000.
15 years? 15 years, I think. Well, that last year was just paid out. We
Yeah.
were on the air.
You got paid for a whole year?
Oh, more than that.
More than that,
It was the
18
craziest thing. We won't go into the radio company that did it. But
You got-
we
Before it was what
we
it
were
is now.
making really good money. They had built a station across the street for us, and we went across the street. And then halfway through it, we were number one, beating our old station that had never been beaten before.
Okay, let me for those that don't know. So across the street means a rival. So you were
Yes.
working at a different station,
We worked
and
at
then Clear
KSON.
Channel built a station, and then they said, "Hey, come." So they hired you away from your old station.
Yes.
Got it.
And we were like they put a ridiculous bonus in if you could beat your old station because it was always number one. And we did it in the first book, and everybody was losing their mind. And then a new GM.
I want to clarify one quick thing.
Okay.
They didn't hire us away like we just went for more money. There's a story behind it. We wanted to stay at KSON. We were there for 10 years.
It wasn't a big contract negotiation, and you picked them.
It was a big contract negotiation. The contract had been negotiated in principle. We just hadn't signed the contract yet. Everything was done.
They
Everybody-
sent flowers
they sent flowers
to
to our
us,
wives. Everything was
congratulating us.
great. And then the VP at that time it was an insurance company that owned KSON, Lincoln Financial. She saw it, the deal, and she said, "What are we doing? We're not paying these guys this money." And they're like, "Yes, we are. This is what the market will bear. This is what the top shows are making." She goes, "Well, we've never paid a show this much, and we're not doing that." So she reneged on the deal.
Wow, she nixed the deal. Just
And then she sent word down when they'll either take it what they're doing for another year, 1 year contract, so we can find someone cheaper, or they can go to another market and we'll tell everybody they ditched for more money.
And that was the KSON way, because there were some big names that came out of there. Jack Diamond back in the day, Lisa Dent, who went to Chicago, had great success. It was a station where if you were successful and left, you left the city. Nobody had ever stayed because there was no country station who would take them on, ever. So this was right before the holidays. It was weird because we always took 2 weeks off at the end of the year, and we're packing up our stuff. But then we basically called a buddy of ours and said, "Hey, can you come help us get this out? We're going to empty out the office," because we knew when we left, we were leaving for good. And our agent called the guys at Clear Channel and said, "Hey, would you be interested in Tony and Kris?" And they were like, "Absolutely, but they'll never leave KSON. I mean, they're killing it over there." And he was like, "Funny story." And he told them what happened. And the guy was like, give me a couple of days, because now we're in the holidays. Books are closed, obviously. Long story short, it got done. And when we left KSON before Christmas, 2 weeks before, came back in January to a brand new radio station that had been built for us.
Was that a super stressful, intense time for you guys?
Yes.
That you talk about it now, it's like ho-hum, but really at the time it was like, oh my God.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I going to do? I got kids. We've
you're
got a
still
house.
hurt.
Yeah.
Like, even though the other station, you loved everybody at the other station, and then you're coming on, and it was just weird. And like jealous that there's people in our seats and across the street.
How quickly did they hire someone new?
Pretty quick. They had to. Oh, actually, I take that back.
It was like a year.
They put in like the midday guy and somebody, and they were on there for, I don't think it was a year.
Oh,
That was brutal.
And they're dead man walking. It almost doesn't matter who it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
You're,
They knew. Well, and the nice thing about, to their credit, they weren't hiring them to do the morning show and then get rid of them when they were done. The guy stayed on. He was with the company for a while, doing middays
Sure.
and other things. But they did what they had to do, and then they hired a show that was, in my opinion, not awesome, but it's tough because they're putting people together who weren't already a show.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's risky.
what was it like at the new place?
Initially, it was great.
Initially.
Well,
yeah.
with the GM, when he hired us, he goes, look, our afternoon guy is a good kid. He's the PD. Will you guys kind of train him how to be a PD?
Did you know how to be a PD?
Huh?
Did you guys know how to be a PD?
Well, I think we knew
Well,
how to
we've
beat
been taught
KSON.
by the best.
Yeah, we knew how to beat KSON.
Okay.
And
because
so
we've been there
we
for
would
that.
say, like, the first thing they're going to do is call all the record labels and say, if you do anything with them, we're not going to play the records. So we said, let's get the PD or the music director at KNIX to be our music director also. So that takes away that leverage. And, so we did little things like that.
It was a brand new station. We weren't reporting, but KNIX was. And so it was Gwen
Yeah.
Foster.
So-
and so that held. They couldn't say, well, we won't play it anymore. So, well, neither will KNIX.
So we crushed them, and it was just rocking, and it was great. And then the new GM come in, and the new GM, the afternoon jock was not, the PD was not smart.
How long was your new contract for?
5
by the way?
years.
5 years.
Okay.
And when the new GM come in, the GM basically said, I don't need a morning show's input. I've got a PD right here.
He didn't believe in country either. So it was. We were out of the gate. We were
Fundamentally
like,
just a bad fit.
Yeah. And then as soon as that happened, we got cut out of the loop on everything, and the decisions started being weird. Like, I remember one day being at CMA, the roundtable thing, and a lady walked up and goes, boy, it's a tough day for you guys. And we're like, what? And she goes, the PD's calling all the regionals or the record reps and telling them that we don't need you anymore because they decided they're going to start leaning more old country. We're like, what? So we had to call and get that stopped. And then like 6 weeks later, without telling anybody, they flipped it to new country. It was just weird. But anyhow, when we were saying the last year we just got paid out, we were calling our agent, and our agent finally just said one day, he goes, guys, Paul, you know Paul.
I do.
And he goes, guys, you're trying to win, and you will not win. They want you gone. And we're like, well, what do we do? And so we went and said, if you don't want us here, let us out. And they were like, oh, no, we want you here, but we need you to sign this. And it was a list of, you will not
crazy ass stuff.
You will not talk more than 20 seconds a break. You will never say your name. You will run no imaging with your name.
If traffic's more than 60 seconds behind, out of this window, I mean, all these crazy reasons they could fire us.
Where was this coming from? Like, what you actually have some clarity from it now because you're far removed, but really, what was happening? What was the goal in?
Well, we found out because of an email. Basically, they wanted to save the money.
That they were paying you guys.
The GM, they were trying to get us for cause.
Because it was an ironclad contract.
And that's why they were giving you all these stipulations. They were ready for you to break one because they were so hard to maintain.
And Paul was just like, take the checks.
In our building,
I'll get you out of it.
Remember when the craze happened where everybody was buying everybody?
Yes.
We had Jeff and Jer, Dave Shelley and Chainsaw, us, AJ. The 4 biggest morning shows in San Diego were all in one hallway. And that was a lot of money back then. And the new GM come in and goes, I don't want that. Like, they replaced our show when we left with 2 part-timers one of which had never been in a radio station 6 weeks before.
It's kind of like when George gets fired from the Yankees and they're like, who's doing your job now? He's like, an intern. And he comes in on Mondays. It's like, ouch, that hurt, man.
So the GM came in with a completely different agenda, and he was trying to put the pieces together to eliminate a lot of cash being paid out to talent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Didn't believe in talent, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the beginning of the end for talent in San Diego anyway at that time.
So
So-
for a year, our agent just said, just go in, do the weather, the calls, and play solitaire all morning and cash those checks. So
In the meantime, I'll work to get you out of this. And he eventually did, and they had to pay us 18 months to do nothing, which was great.
So wait, was the do nothing the solitaire?
No, we
'Cause I consider waking up in the morning something at the hours we have to wake up.
Well, we left the building. Like they paid us
Got it,
out for
got it.
18 months, and we just
So you slept in for 18 months to get paid.
yeah. And then that time, that was when we first started. Our little syndication idea. We were like, oh, because we wanted to do it for country because country hadn't been done at that time.
Sure.
You didn't exist at that point, as far as we were.
You cracked the code. We were never able to do that.
Yeah. But anyway, so it was an interesting time, stressful, but
The 18 months even feel like that, as amazing as it sounds to get paid and not work, I would not like that.
Well, that's why it took us that long to get the syndication set up. To move
we were
to
traveling the
Nashville.
country. Yeah,
Because everybody we talked to at that time said syndication won't work in country. And I kept saying, I feel like that's a cop-out from PDs that are scared for their job because it's like, oh, it won't work in country. It's like, I don't know people that wake up and go, I'll listen to Howard Stern because it's rock, but I will not listen to a country DJ that's syndicated. I just don't.
It's funny, Mike McVeigh's most recent article about how to win with syndication, and I just was reading the comment. I didn't read the article because I don't care. But
I love it.
I was reading the comments because I'm just being honest, man. But I'm reading the comments because I'm always curious to see how people, and I'm watching people quote things that we said about syndication 10 years ago. I'm like, where were you guys?
When we needed you.
We had this idea, man. But it was funny. Oh, if you do this and you do this. And I was like, yeah, that's true. That's accurate. They knew a lot about it because they all had lived it on one side or the other of that world.
Did you, when you guys were getting paid, because again, I would be so stressed out. And again, I think on the surface, like, well, 18 months, you get paid. But you guys are working, building something else while you're getting paid. But I would just feel like I'm looking at a clock ticking.
It was. It was very much like that. And when you got down to the end of the 18 months, it still took longer after that. It wasn't like we timed it out perfectly. Hey, all right, this is great.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I had a wife and 3 kids. Our marriage was already on the rocks. So I was so stressed out by my personal life being such a mess. And then we're trying to figure out, now we got to move to Nashville. Just going to Nashville for a week to find a place to live was the greatest time in my life. I get out of that for a second. And not to get all into this, but I should have told her then. I said, we shouldn't do this. I should have ended it before we moved to Nashville because then it just got worse.
Did you guys ever think about splitting up, you two?
Us?
No.
Was never a conversation.
We've never really had an argument. It's what I think it's because I know this sounds crazy, but I swear when we decided to put the tape together, we said we're going to be 50-50 partners because we knew other morning shows and it was always like, well, he makes $3,000 more a year because he runs the board. And, or he does production or whatever. And we were like, we're going to be, if they want just you, because I have more of an accent, because back then they were like, Tony sounds so eloquent. He doesn't have the accent like the hick over
I just didn't sound like I was born and raised in Alabama.
But we were like, it doesn't matter. You pay one of us, you pay both of us. Yeah. And we fought for that. We had DJ, one of our PDs told us, he just goes, I'm told to drive a wedge between you two so I can get you for separate remotes. And we were like, that's not fine as long as we both get paid.
It's like the cast of Friends.
Man, I like that.
Just not $1 million an episode,
Yeah. And it was funny because he had started as an intern for us, and then he was a promo assistant. He's very successful now in Pensacola. I don't even know what name he goes by. He's got so many different names.
Brent Lane.
Brent Lane, I think, is his on-air name. And super nice guy, and he worked really hard, and he has developed a very successful show. He married Pensacola and made it. He's killing it. But he called us when we were still in San Diego. He said, can I ask you guys some advice? Sure. He goes, what do you do when you fight about something? Because my new partner and I were not getting along. And I was like, honestly, man, I would love to give you some great nugget that you could, he fixed everything. I don't know because we've never had a fight. It's never gotten to that point. And that's not to say we've never disagreed.
Oh, yeah, we've disagreed. And ultimately, we both know that we're so evil that it would end horribly if we ever got in a fight. Yeah. So it's just...
It's always been one of those things where if he's passionate about something that I was like, I don't think this is great, but he's clearly passionate when we did it. So and if it works, great. Hey, I was wrong. If it doesn't work, I get to go, ha!
Exactly.
And vice versa. And then when things got hard in San Diego, we knew we weren't done yet. We still had things we wanted to do. We felt we still had something to give. So it was never even a question of ending it at that point. And even when we retired for 17 days, 6 years ago, after we hit 25 years, we've been doing syndication for 7 or 8 years, and we're like,
it wasn't fun for us.
We just weren't having fun.
The PDs that set it and forget it. That's all we had. All of our stations were. You haven't asked for liners in over a year.
We still deal with that.
We're familiar with this.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
They would complain about the numbers, but you're not doing anything. This is a partnership. You're supposed to be working too. So anyway, we decided this seems like a good time maybe to stop this, and we'll see what happens next. We both had some things we wanted to do, and we did, and then we got that call from Knoxville, which I wish we had never taken.
Yeah, I wish we had never taken.
That was not a good situation.
It was horrible. I don't want to sound negative. I don't want to sound like everything we had. Let me tell you another thing that sucks about radio. It's not like that at all. We have an incredible
Welcome
career.
to the negative hour.
Yeah, no, incredible career, and we have 90% awesome, fun stories that we could tell over and over again. And then there's that 10%, but that 10% is so horribly bad. It does leave a little mark on your soul.
What happened in Knoxville? I remember you guys going to Knoxville and basing from.
We were number one every book.
Yeah.
I mean, we came in and they thought it was going to drop because we thought it would drop because the morning show before us had been there for 20 years, legendary station.
It was funny because it was the second time we took over for a show that had been there a long time. We did it in San Diego.
Frankly, the market manager there is insane. And I mean,
Allegedly.
Allegedly told us racist statements. I mean, just not a good person.
That building's full of bad people. There's a few gems, but it's mostly
we
just
got
people.
called into his office one day. Also, they were delusional a little bit over there because they still believe it's 1985. And I swear one day I got called into a meeting, a creative meeting for the bar there. And there's 20 people in this meeting, and I'm going around the room going, $20 an hour, $30 an hour, $10 an hour. This is a $3,000 meeting. And they were basically they settled on an American Idol version for this Cotton Eye Joe.
Which is a bar in Knoxville.
And they want it to be like a 10-week promotion. I'm like, is there enough talent in Knoxville for a 10-week talent search? And the market manager goes, Kris, when Nashville hears that WIVK is doing this, the bands and artists and labels are going to be driving bands over here for this. And I said, for $300 in a Yeti cooler as a grand prize? and he was serious. I mean, he meant that. But yeah, it was not good. We got called into the office the second week there, and he played a sweeper, and we had taken one of the first callers that called in and said, you guys are really funny. And he goes, we can get that off the air. We're like, why? And he goes, that's disrespectful to the previous morning show.
Oh, wow.
And
It was
we're
crazy.
like,
Did he have a relationship with the previous morning show? Why was he so...
you just can't change anything. Everything has to be run
I've never
through.
seen a building more afraid of change. And when we were even in San Diego years ago, we'd see them always show up number one in the ratings with these crazy numbers. And we're like, man, that must be a killer radio station. And we realized, no. Once we got there, we heard the stories. The dude who owned it back then just bought everybody off. If you tried to go up against him, he just paid you money not to. So they were the only game in town. So that's how they built those numbers. And then they wanted to live off those numbers and live off that legacy in current times, and you can't do that. But they get away with it to a point because it's not a super competitive market.
How long were you there?
5 horrible years.
It was 5 years?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. 5 years of my life I'll never get back.
Walk me through, what time do you wake up now? Walk me through a day for you guys now.
I'm a night owl. I am.
Me too, man.
I am completely.
Me too.
And I get to live that life now. It's fantastic. So I go to bed at midnight or 1 during the week.
That's
Freaking
nice.
awesome.
It is. It kicks
it
ass.
took
I'm like,
me a
I'm finally
while.
getting to be my true self.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get adjusted to not going to bed at 8 o'clock or whatever, to get up at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. But I go to bed about 11:30 now, and get up at 6 in the morning, do a workout, get some stuff done. I got to say, I look younger, I feel younger. It's amazing what rest will do for you.
Yeah, sleep is nice. Yeah, my wife works. She's in a corporate world. She is a senior payroll manager for Philips North America. Excuse me. So she has a real job, and she worked for Williams-Sonoma for many years before that, but she worked remotely for them because she came from San Francisco to live with me in Nashville. And so now she's been spoiled by that. She has to go in the office a couple of days a week now, and it's like, oh man. But I'm home. I get up. I usually get up when she gets up because we have 3 dogs and we have some backyard chickens, and everything's got to be taken care of. So I'm the house husband right now.
Do you guys live close to here?
I used to
Like
live
what
right
part
down
of-
the street. I live in East Nashville right now,
do?
but I used to live right
Look
over
at
on
you.
the old side of Green Hill.
He looks like an East Nashville guy.
He does.
Like,
little
he's-
hipster side there.
Even when I watch him on TikTok, this Billboard song #1. It's not- and his hair's like perfectly it's like
It's crazy
it's
today.
Like
My haircut was scheduled for tomorrow, and I was like,
but it's like the hipster blonde grayish cool color
looks
as well.
cool.
It's awesome.
Do you find that you get this too? Because it annoys me because he puts all this work into it, and I'll look at the comments, and the first comment is just a dig at him, like, "Who's the creep with the hair?"
Oh, no, yeah.
Why?
I try not to look at the comments.
What kind of my favorite
somebody to
comments,
say
though.
that?
Those are funny though, because I'm like, this person is clearly just trying to be an asshole, and I'm down with that because I'm the same way, but I'm not a troll. It's like,
You guys, when you are doing content now, how often do you get together to do that?
It depends, really, right? The radio stories thing we're doing now, we get together about once a month and knock out just a bunch of stories,
Yeah,
and then he does his
that work,
music minute.
Yeah, that work is kind of like we scheduled our radio stuff. We knew if we're going to be doing this, let's get as much of that part done early. And then the content's just sitting there and we can go back. And so, I think we record 30 or 40 of those radio stories at a time.
Really?
I take them home and then they're super easy to edit. I put them together and stick them up.
And we sit there and go, well, we don't have any stories. And then we'll either look through some old archives of interviews and go, oh, remember what we learned from that or what happened there? And then now we got people calling us going, hey, have you told the, and I'm like, oh, no, I forgot about that. So.
Yeah, I mean, 30 years is a long time, a lot of stories, and we drank a lot heavier back then than we do now. So some of the stories, you have to have somebody remind you that you did something and go, oh, that was pretty funny. I wish I remembered it.
Do you think that have you thought about doing like a long form podcast?
When we started doing the digital stuff, we began that way, and we did it exclusively on video. So we wanted to make YouTube kind of our thing. Mm-hmm. And it was slow going, but it built a little bit, and we got into that 3,000 and 4,000 subscriber range, which, starting from scratch, 2 guys in their 50s for us, we were happy with that. But and then it's funny how one viral thing, I did one of my billboard stories on Sheriff, When I'm With You, and it went viral.
Wait, Sheriff.
When I'm With You, one hit wonders from the 80s.
Okay. How does it go? Do you know that?
No.
I don't know that one.
Oh, okay, you gotta look it up. It's a great story. I don't
Can
want
you
to tell
sing
the whole
it?
thing. What's that?
No, I'm talking about the song.
Yeah, the song. Can you sing it?
Do you sing?
Oh, yeah.
Not like him.
But
he's got a crazy high voice.
Give me the melody.
Well, the chorus is a big chorus. He comes in with this really high voice. Baby, I get chills when I'm with you. Oh, oh. And at the end, he has
80s cheese at its best.
At the end of it, he holds this note that's like, oh, and he holds it forever. For a while, it was the Guinness World Record for the longest note. And I found out researching that story, he only did it because he didn't know the song was over. Like nobody told him to cut. So he just hit the note and just kept going.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was like Bugs Bunny in that cartoon where he holds
Yeah,
the guy.
I love that one. I love that one.
With the glove.
Yeah, exactly.
He goes and makes a sandwich, and is the glove still doing
but
it?
that blew up, and so now we're at almost 14,000 subscribers. So
Also-
one story, and it's one 60-second short that
I'm
hits 1
annoyed.
million people, and next thing you know.
You know it?
So Sheriff
I'm
is
annoyed.
our hot tour.
I'm annoyed.
About what?
He can also sing.
I
I mean, good looking.
It's so
oh.
dumb.
I mean,
Yeah, Hawk 2 is hilarious.
Oh my
that
God.
happened here.
I know.
Yeah, I
what
know.
a
And I
nightmare
remember-
for a father.
Oh my God. And the thing,
I think it's hilarious
My
because
daughter,
my
I'm
kids are all
just like, oh
grown.
my God, I don't want her to ever see something like that.
Oh,
I mean, just
my
that poor
God.
dad right now. And I just saw a thing that she'd made like $65,000 in signing merchandise.
well, she was in hiding for a while. What I
she got fired?
as a preschool teacher. If that story is true,
I don't know that that's true.
I
Okay,
heard that was
if that
false.
story is true, which it most times is not, that's what I heard. But I don't believe that. But why would she? Because she purposefully was not taking the credit for that for a while.
Yeah.
And so Hawk 2, I spit on that thing, and that's
Now
become
that's out there of you.
Yeah,
There you go.
there's far worse.
Go ahead and mark that clip, will you? I want to make sure.
There's far worse than that out there of me. But the weirdest thing to go really viral, but also that sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Sometimes
it's
going
awful.
viral is not
And it's
awesome.
also awful. That's the one thing that's
know.
united our nation.
Yeah, true.
Hey, we'll take anything,
I
though,
was
at
just
this
saying,
point, right?
for a little piece, I'll take it, man.
Let's see this song.
Okay.
And we found workarounds to play music on podcasts because it's illegal. We just play it from our phone below the microphone.
If it's ambient noise,
Yeah.
Yeah,
can't
I
do
don't know
anything
what's going
about
on
it.
there.
Good to know.
Yeah, what are they? Well, I'm not saying. Don't take my legal advice. We're not lawyers. Yeah, I'm just saying you can't really play it on demand because and that's the big fight here. So we play a little bit. I don't think I know this.
I don't
song.
know it either.
It's a one-hit wonder. What's crazy is this guy, Freddie, I can't remember his last name, Kersey. He has the distinction of being the lead singer of 2 different bands that are one-hit wonders.
What's the other band? Let's see if I know the song.
Alias is the band, and the song is More Than Words Can Say. It was another late 80s, early 90s
We
song.
played that at Kicks.
They basically said, let's
Is
make
it-
a
is it
second When
country
I'm
song?
With You.
Was Kicks not
We
a
met
country
at a
station?
rock station.
Kicks was a rock station. That was the name of a rock station. Wow.
Kicks 102.9. Yeah, so that song, they released it, and they were really trying to make it, and it didn't go anywhere, and so they were like, damn, I guess we'll break up. It's not going to work. So they broke up. Years later, I want to say 5-6 years later, some PD said, man, that song deserves a second chance. And he played it, and that was, I want to say, in Atlanta. And then somebody in Minneapolis said, all right, KDWB? Or
Yeah, pop station.
yeah.
Yeah.
They said, hey, that is a good song. They started playing it. Next thing you know, it kind of takes off. 1989, I think. It hit #1 for 1 week, one glorious week.
Wow.
And the singer was working as a courier at the time. And he walked into an office, and it was playing on the radio. And he goes, that's me. And the girl didn't believe him. He goes, no, I'm telling you, I sang that song. She goes, yeah, sure you did. He calls the rest of the band and says, do you guys want to get back together? We have this heat now. We have a song that's #1. And they're like, nah. The other main guy, the guitarist, started a new band. I guess that's really
I
big.
can tell you so many bands right now I wish would not get back together.
Yeah, really big in Canada. So he said, all right, well, I'm going to go start a different band then. So he took the other guys from the band and made Alias. They had that one big hit, and they drifted off into nowhere.
So you're a music nerd.
Oh,
It's like dinner with Casey Kasem. It's awesome.
So you're managing somebody?
Yes.
What in the world?
I tried everything to not do that.
Who is it?
Styles is his name.
Styles Harry?
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote a song with him.
Yes, and basically
Harry Styles?
Random. No.
See, that's why we're dropping the last name.
But see, that's
because
also
everybody-
why I took the right. I thought it was Harry Styles.
So it goes both ways.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife, during COVID, my wife is a songwriter, and she came upstairs from a Zoom write and said, I just wrote with someone that I haven't felt this way about having the it factor since Luke and I used to write.
Which Luke?
Brian. She wrote Good Directions with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The,
And
the
so-
Billy Currington song.
Yeah, so she wrote like Buzzkill,
Wow, that's crazy.
several
Your
of his
wife
songs.
was a writer on Good Directions?
Oh yeah, and so she was like, this guy has got it. She goes, I want to write with him again. I was like, awesome. So she comes back to me a couple months later and says, would you mind? And I've got 3 or 4 artists she's done this with, where she's like, would you talk to them and just give them what you think they should do? Because we all know those artists that show up every year with a new demo and they go, what do I need to do now? And you tell them what to do, and then they come to you a year later and ask the same question. And it's like, well, you haven't done anything we suggested. And so I talked to him, and I gave him he was kind of all over the place. And I was like, look, Styles, here's the deal. You need to do this, 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 and this. And the next morning I get a call, and he's like, okay, I did all that last night. I was up till 5:30. And then we just kept talking, and eventually he goes, I need you to manage me. And I was like, I don't know how to manage. So I called Keith Gale. I called Clarence Spalding. I called Enzo. I called every manager I knew, and every one of them were like, you can do this. Go do it. We'll help you. If you need any help, you just call. And I was like, okay. So I went back and said, I'm going to try it.
And
So.
spell his name.
Styles?
Yeah.
I'm from Alabama. You're asking me to spell?
Is it
no.
He did not.
It's
I thought
Y.
that-
It's Y.
The paperwork not come through. You're not supposed to ask him to spell anything out.
Or math, anything educational.
That's part of the deal.
Styles.
The last name's weird, though. It's
Haury.
Right.
But he will be known as
Haur.
Styles.
So it's just Styles. And how long you been doing that?
About 2 years.
And he's a songwriter, but he's an artist too?
Yeah, he wrote Country On, Luke Bryan.
Okay, cool.
coincidentally. But
I didn't
he's
write
got
that one with him.
he's got 2 Tim McGraw holds right now, a Blake Shelton hold, a John Party hold. We feel he's about to pop. And
But
we
that's all the writing, like publishing.
Yeah.
But what about the singing?
Well, he's got a new album dropping real soon, and we're doing a co-venture with someone that we haven't announced it yet, but
Styles.
you're very good friends with the person's company. I'll say that.
Styles P? I am. He's a rapper. S-T-Y. Wait, no.
LES.
S-T-Y-L-E.
So he did lose the last name.
We're working on that
Working on
right now. It's completely screwed up the distro, so that's the meetings
Yeah,
we've
that's-
been in the
that's
past 2
tough.
days.
That's tough. And what's it? Styles what again? S-T?
Haury.
H-A.
He's a big hunter.
Oh my God, that's
Oh, that is not what I thought he would look like.
Yeah, it's tough.
I
dude.
just had like British, feminine.
Well, you
I
it's
Harry
Harry
Styles.
Styles.
we have
Not like
visions
that.
of him, selling out like Morgan Wallen in 2 years from now. I mean, we've built to that point to where like everybody's going, he's about to pop. And I told my wife, I said, we will live within 2 miles of his house because when Armageddon comes, he'll feed us.
yeah, he's got all
Because
the food.
he is a real hunter. Like,
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, he does it all. He just got the state record for killing the largest moose in Maine with a
Wow.
bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Or a crossbow or something.
Yeah, he's a man's man.
Hey, sounds like a wimp to me.
I don't like.
Hey, I'd hire someone to do that.
He's in the background, by the way.
He sues us. Tony's attorney hits me up later. Hey, so I
got
hear
him.
you were playing music on the podcast. Well, how about like I've really enjoyed this, and I'm super happy that you guys said yes because I just sent a message over. I was like, do you guys want to come over and talk?
I hope we're your fill-in guys when you get ditched on. You just say, hey, come back over here and tell stupid stories.
Well,
We'll do
I
that
was
all
gonna
day
say
long.
we should in 3 months or so come do this again, and let's just then I also
We
know
can
like,
send you a menu. Here are 20 stories
Yeah,
that
and
we
I-
have.
I
Pick
think-
the ones you like the most, and we'll do them.
we should do something like that, and also I also see I don't have to lead the whole time, which I'm used to doing, which also feels good.
You want us to come interview you?
No, I
Hey,
don't.
like Barbara Walters.
No, I
Make
don't
you
want
cry.
that.
We will crush you.
But I think let's do it again in like 3 months or so if you guys are cool. Because
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. It's also fun to just kind of sit back and feel like you're not having to
There's no pressure here.
wait. And because it's, as you know, if I ever do and I do this every week, one-on-one with somebody, and it's just us two, it's exhausting in the best way. I have to listen so intently. Because I'm usually asking a question based on what they just said. I don't really have a list of questions. I do have the knowledge, hopefully, like I've read enough and understand enough. but it gets to be pretty exhausting, like focusing so hard. It's like going on a road trip where you think, I shouldn't be that tired. All I did was drive for 7 hours. But your subconscious and even your conscious at times has to constantly be scanning, looking, watching.
And that's one of the things. Another thing I loved about our career together is we knew in those moments and those kind of interviews. I'm the straight guy, so I would ask the questions that needed to be asked. But he's always there to take that, add some levity, and and then we'd go off. But you knew you had somebody else paying attention, and then I knew I was paying attention because he often would be doing this.
To your point, though, about having to scan and constantly, you also, in a split second, have to go, that joke's too obvious, that question's too stupid, you have to filter everything and know to make yourself elevate above everyone else that does interviews.
You do that, Bones?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't do that.
I usually look to go under. I want to get to the other side, but I'm happy to go under.
Set the
too.
bar nice.
That same market manager we were talking about used to give us notes like, you missed an obvious joke, and it would be
No
like, no,
way.
we didn't miss
We
that.
didn't miss it.
No way.
That was the first thing we thought of, and we were like, if he can think of it, anybody can.
That moron can think of it. Anybody can.
Wow. Your TikTok is at Tony and Chris. It's
Tony
just
and Chris Show,
with-
I think.
Yeah, Tony and Chris Show.
Yeah.
Okay. Follow that.
Thank you.
Check out Styles.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that.
No, for sure. Styles, how do you say it? Howery?
Just Styles.
Yeah, they're getting rid of that.
No, but hold
trying to get rid of
on.
that.
No, hold on. I hear you, but this is why I say that,
Yeah.
because right now, if you just
Yeah,
search
I
Styles,
know his distro
it doesn't
screwed
pop
up.
up to stream.
Yeah.
So,
Haury.
but soon forget that. But right now,
For the moment,
And throw one in for my wife while we're doing it. Rachel Thibodeau music.
Okay, Thibodeau. Why do you always have people with weird spellings?
It's just what I do. I'm from Alabama.
Like
People
there's
just
an
screw me up whenever I have to fill out
IOUX or
paperwork.
something. Yeah, is it like THIBIOUXX?
you're on
No
your way.
X.
No, there's no
No
X.
X.
No.
Really?
It's she's from
You're
Minnesota.
shocked the room. No X.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's
wow.
from Minnesota. French
I would
Canadian.
have lost that spelling bee.
So if I were spelling it out of my own, TIB. Well, it's not TIB.
THIB.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
man.
that's worse than the X. I would never have gotten there. THIB.
ODEAU.
You can spell.
I've just
You
got
better
a
be able to
beat in
spell
my
that
head.
one. I was going to say,
My wife would have busted through this door in about 2 seconds if I
my
hadn't
wife's
got that
maiden
right.
name is Risk, which I
Easy,
love.
yeah.
It's
Easy.
nice and easy.
Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate
thank
it.
you.
It's our
Let's do it
pleasure,
again.
Bobby.
This
Thanks
has
for
been
having
super fun for me. Eddie.
Yeah.
And Eddie's only here, if I'm being honest with you. Eddie is my best friend, and we do the show together, and we play music together, but comedy music, not
You
real
throw me
music.
under the bus?
Yeah, well, he was only over here because he wanted to use my printer to print out stuff for eBay. It's honestly not that he's like, I want to go be a part of this interview. He was like, hey, can I use your printer for eBay? Because I have one of those heat printers.
That's awesome.
And I was like, yeah, we're doing it. So he just sits down and hops in.
My kids sell sports cards, so like I'm gonna print a thing out. He's like, "Hey, I'm doing a podcast. You want to sit on it?" Like, yeah, sure.
Nice.
So-
I'm glad you
You
love
guys
that.
are awesome, man. I love the
Yeah,
stories.
it's
They're very
awesome.
cool.
Thank you very much.
And then we'll see you guys soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank
It's
you.
our pleasure, man.